The night you decided to move back home, you did not tell anyone. You sat at the kitchen table of the apartment you had been paying $1,340 a month for, and you opened a spreadsheet, not for the first time, but for the first time you let yourself finish it. Rent, $1,340, utilities, $180, groceries, $290, phone, $85, student loan, $310, transportation, $140. The number at the bottom was not zero, it was negative $180. Every month, for 11 months. You had been covering it with the weekend shifts, the delivery app, the thing you told yourself was temporary. You closed the spreadsheet. You sat in the quiet of an apartment that cost more than you made, and somewhere around midnight you made the decision that you had been avoiding for almost a year. You were going to move home. 2 years earlier, moving out felt like the only thing that mattered. You were 24, you had a job, not a great job, but a real one, $38,000 a year in a city that charged $1,200 minimum to sleep in it. You found a 2-bedroom with a roommate named Jordan. You split everything down the middle. It worked, barely, but it worked. The apartment was small, the walls were thin, the elevator broke twice in the first month, but it was yours. Your name was on the lease. You bought a coffee maker and put it on the counter, and that felt like something, like proof of something. You told yourself you were building, saving a little each month, learning how the city worked, getting better at the job. The plan was loose, but it existed. Then Jordan left. Jordan got a job offer in another city. Good for Jordan, genuinely. But the lease had 4 months left, and your name was still on it. And finding a new roommate in 4 months in this city meant taking whoever showed up first. You took whoever showed up first. It did not work out. By the time that lease ended, you were exhausted in a way that had nothing to do with sleep. You found a new place, smaller, more expensive, just you. Because by then, the idea of another roommate situation felt like a risk you did not have the energy for. That was the decision that started the math problem you would spend 11 months pretending was not a math problem. $1,340 a month for a studio is not outrageous in this city. That is the part that made it harder. It wasn't reckless, it was just the market that existed when you needed to live somewhere. The market that did not ask whether your salary had kept up with it. The market that simply was. You got a small raise at 25, $41,000. You moved the numbers around in your head and told yourself it would balance out. It did not balance out. The delivery shifts started in February. Just weekends, you said. Just until things stabilize, you said. By June, you were working 6 days a week, and your savings account had $340 in it, and you hadn't been to a dentist in 14 months. You were not failing dramatically. That was the strange part. From the outside, nothing looked broken. You showed up to work, you paid your bills, you responded to messages, you went to things when you could afford to go to things. The collapse was internal and administrative. A slow leak nobody could see because you had learned to perform stability so consistently that you had almost convinced yourself it was real. The conversation you dreaded most was not with your parents. It was with yourself at that kitchen table, finishing the spreadsheet. Because once you finished it, there was nothing left to negotiate. The number was negative, had been negative for 11 months. The gap between what you earned and what you spent was not going to close with another raise that wasn't coming or another spreadsheet adjustment that changed nothing. The only variable you actually controlled was rent. And rent, if you moved home, was zero. You did not call your parents that night. You sat with it. You let yourself be angry about it for a while, because you earned that. You were 26, and you had done what you were supposed to do, and the numbers still didn't work, and that was worth being angry about for at least one night before you made it practical. By morning, you had made it practical. Moving back took 1 weekend and 3 trips in a rented van. The apartment that had taken months to feel like yours took about 4 hours to stop being yours. You handed the keys to the landlord on a Sunday afternoon. He didn't say anything meaningful. He checked the walls for damage and signed a form. Your old bedroom at your parents' house had been turned into a home office. Your mother moved the desk to one side. Your father didn't say much. He helped carry the boxes. That first night in the house you grew up in the room that was no longer your room, you lay on a mattress surrounded by the boxes you had not unpacked yet, and you stared at the ceiling, and you thought about the coffee maker still sitting on the counter of a place that was no longer yours. You had left it. It felt like too much to bring it. The questions started within the first week, not from your parents, from everyone else. A friend from work asked how the new place was going. You said fine. You did not correct the assumption. Another friend posted photos of a housewarming in an apartment downtown. A third asked if you wanted to split a lease in the spring. You said maybe. Let me think about it. You were not lying exactly. You were just not yet ready to say out loud what you had decided, because saying it out loud meant making it real in a way that the boxes in the old bedroom had not yet made it real. The word that kept appearing in your head was setback. That's how you were framing it. A setback. Temporary. A pause before the next thing. It took about 6 weeks to stop calling it a setback, because a setback implies you were on the right path and something interrupted it. But the path you were on was bleeding $180 a month while you worked 6 days a week and called it building. That was not a path worth returning to. What you had done was leave a losing position. By month 3, the numbers looked differently. Not dramatically, but differently. You were saving $1,100 a month, not investing it, not making any impressive financial moves, just moving it from your checking account to a savings account on the first of the month and not touching it. By month 3, that account had $3,300 in it. You had not had $3,300 in savings since you were 22 and had not yet spent it on the deposit for the first apartment. You stopped working the delivery shifts in month 2, not because you didn't need the money anymore, but because you needed to remember what it felt like to have a Saturday that belonged to you. It felt strange at first, then it felt like something you had forgotten you were allowed to have. You went to the dentist. Here is the thing nobody tells you about moving back home at 26. It's not the hardest part. The hardest part happened before, in the 11 months you spent performing stability instead of building it. The hardest part was the delivery shifts at 10 p.m. on a Saturday. The hardest part was the spreadsheet you kept closing before you reached the bottom. Moving home was just the decision to stop pretending the math was going to fix itself. The generation before yours had a different set of numbers, entry-level salaries that could meet entry-level rents in the same city, a gap between what things cost and what people earned that was uncomfortable but survivable, without a second job. That gap is no longer uncomfortable. For a lot of people, it is simply impossible, and no amount of discipline or sacrifice closes an impossible gap. You did not move home because you failed. You moved home because you finally did the math clearly and responded to what it actually said instead of what you wished it said. You were 26. Your savings account has $3,300 in it and is growing. You sleep in the room that used to be yours and is almost yours again. You have a plan that isn't perfect but is real. Someone is going to ask you at some point how the apartment situation is going, and you are going to have to decide what you say. Here is what I would tell you to say. Tell them you made a decision based on math. Tell them the math wasn't working and you changed the variable you actually could change. Tell them you are building something now that you could not build before. And if they look at you the way people sometimes look at someone who moved back home at 26, let them look. The coffee maker you left behind cost $34. You have saved more than that every single day since you moved home. You are not behind. You just stopped pretending a losing position was worth staying in because leaving it felt like losing. That is not losing. That is the first honest financial decision you have made in 2 years. Thank you for watching Priced Out. Click here to see more Priced Out videos.